Another week, another agree or disagree. However, this is a very special one. Now, you've probably seen it when we released asking for your guys' opinions. We've got a bit of a special kind of episode for this week's agree or disagree. Now, in case you don't know, which I don't think a lot of people know this, but this week is the Austrian Grand Prix week. Now, no, this isn't like a virtual Grand Prix week or what could have been a Grand Prix week. This is the actual Grand Prix week. We are actually getting a Grand Prix at the end of the week. Like, guys, oh my word, I'm so excited to be here right now. If I'm honest, I remember back in March, just it's going to take ages, to wait for a Grand Prix, and here we are. Just one more week to go, a few more days to wait before the cars get rolled out on Friday for FP1. So, like I said, what we have asked for you guys this week is to give us your kind of bold predictions for this week's Austrian Grand Prix, and we're going to get the first one sent in to us, and Lyle is going to give us it now. Lyle, what is the first opinion or bold prediction, let's say, for this week's agree or disagree?
Again, we've got an amazing one, and you guys never fail to disappoint us. So the first one comes in from Atesy. That's at A1TZE. And he says, Ferrari will be better than expected. Now, obviously, Ferrari don't really know their form going into the Austrian Grand Prix. It's more of a hunch, but again, I'm getting the vibe that it's not amazing. So, better than expected, I'm going to say agree.
Yes, I'm going to say agree as well. Yeah.
I think with Ferrari, there's a lot of time in winter testing when nothing really can be taken from winter testing, and we know that for sure from last year. Mercedes sandbagging. To be honest, that word didn't even exist before Mercedes just plucked it out of thin air. It basically meant where they were just showing no colours whatsoever in winter testing and showing everyone that they were a team that could be beaten. Lewis and Valtteri in that W10, the 2019 car, was just not on the pace at all. We all thought that was amazing. We all thought Ferrari and Red Bull in the other ways could, capitalise on that. But obviously we were all wrong, and then we rolled by to Australia, which was the first race of that season. Mercedes won too. Bottas wins the race. It's incredible. And, Mercedes were just lying, sandbagging. And that's where that came from. The idea of, I think it means you got sandbags on board when you shouldn't have to. But, it was a lie by Mercedes. And Ferrari were strong in winter testing. They were very strong. They were stronger than Mercedes. They had, more things. It just looked like they had more of a complete package. The power unit was good. The car was very reliable. Their two drivers, and Sebastian and Charles, were strong. On the other side, Mercedes could have been sandbagging, but it looked like they were pushing a lot because Ferrari were strong. And we even made a video on it. I did it on the news, obviously, way back when winter testing was I think it was during the first test. Where I said, are Ferrari doing it? Mercedes, are Ferrari sandbagging with the hopes to roll into Australia, obviously now Austria, with the idea of, a crap SF1000 or whatever the car was called, to obviously have a great one, and everyone thinks they're sandbagging, they're going to be bad, and of course they're not. I do think Ferrari are going to be better than expected. A lot of times Ferrari do get this negative vibe. Not everyone, of course, a lot of people are Ferrari fans, but people think that Ferrari are just not going to be good. And when I say that, it's mainly Sebastian Vettel. I just think now people think Sebastian is just not going to be strong anymore. He's leaving Ferrari at the end of the season. He's possibly retiring from Formula One. He's, mission failed. He hasn't gone there to achieve. He went there to achieve what Michael Schumacher did, and he didn't. And I know that might sound like I'm just having to go Sebastian, and this question isn't about Sebastian as much. Half of it's him, half it's for Charles. I think it's mainly Sebastian. Also, Charles Leclerc, great driver, but I think a lot of people don't think that he has the car to compete against Max and Lewis and Valtteri. But I think that they are going to prove a lot of people wrong. Saying that, I don't mean that they have to win to prove everyone wrong. I just think that a good, say, double podium finish for them, so, get Charles in second, Sebastian in third, or vice versa, would show people they are a really they are a good team heading into this season. Just mainly because two factors. One, because they think Mercedes are going to dominate and run away with it. They still could, and Ferrari, of course, could still be a very strong team, but not win the World Championship like they have done in the past few years. But mainly, the second one is that, they're just not strong enough, and they are going to be overtaken by Red Bull. And that might be fair enough to say that Max might be stronger than Sebastian right now, but it's not fair to say that Ferrari as a whole aren't as strong as Red Bull. I think that Ferrari are going to have a good weekend. I do think Ferrari are going to hit the ground running. I think that a lot of this negative press that goes on their shoulders, it's kind of like they love that. They love that haters vibe because they can just get back stronger. And I think a lot of us that don't think Ferrari are going to be that strong is just not going to happen. And I think that they are going to have a good race in Austria. So obviously that is an agree for me. John, you also said agree, the team that everyone, let's say the team that everyone loves to hear. Yeah, I think that's becoming true of Ferrari now. Yeah. You said agree. Do you think Ferrari are going to be better than expected?
I think so. I think because if you cast your mind back all the way back to February, which felt like a lifetime ago now, Ferrari had a pretty bad pre-season testing. It was almost abysmal in a way. Like, 2019 was a really bad year. They got a couple of wins in the end. They looked strong in the mid part of the season, but then overall it was a pretty bad season from Ferrari. Just lucky for them, like I said before, Gasly had a poor season for Red Bull, which pretty much ensured that Ferrari were finished in second place in the Constructors. Of course, now they've got Albon and Verstappen this year, so I think they've got a strong lineup this year. So really, Ferrari can't afford to take their eye off the ball, essentially. So they've got to be on the ball every single week, which is not really like Ferrari in any shape or form. I don't think that they are as bad as what people are making them out to be. I just think that our Ferrari sandbagging, that's the thing, we don't know. We haven't seen any on-track action or proper like racing weekend action at all this season, because we were supposed to be getting FP1 in Australia, but then that was cancelled a few hours before it was supposed to be going ahead. So that was gone, so we haven't seen Ferrari at all. It'll become more clearer probably maybe after FP3 when we've seen the cars around the track, they've got the setups correct, getting into qualifying. Then qualifying will be a pretty clear indication as to who is where. I mean, qualifying trim and race trim can be two different things. One car could be good in qualifying, then the car could be really bad in the race. So that's that element you've got to take into account as well. So I just think Ferrari. I've got a hunch that they're hiding something. I just don't know why. They're playing down every single thing, and then I've just got a funny feeling that they might rock up to Austria and just dominate. Well, not dominate, but surprise one or two and go, okay, these guys are a lot closer than what we thought they were going to be. So yeah, there's just all that kinds of what ifs and stuff. So no, I think Ferrari should have a stronger or a better Grand Prix than we initially thought. But then again, this could be all true. Ferrari could rock up and actually be third, possibly fourth fastest. That's a bit extreme, I know, but we have seen teams like be really quick one season and then really slow the next, so we'll have to wait and see for that. But I think Ferrari, everything's not as bad as what it originally seems. So let's see how true we are when it comes to, let's say, FP3 and qualifying on Saturday. So the next opinion comes in from Sam O'Gara as well. Thank you very much, Sam, for sending yours in. Prediction as well, if you want to call it that. He says we will see a midfield team on the podium. Well, we've had a few shock podiums in recent memory. Of course, we had Lance Stroll on the podium in Baku. We've had Perez on the podium a couple of times last season. We had Daniel Kvyat and Pierre Gasly all on the podium, both with Toro Rosso at the time, AlphaTauri this season. So we will see a midfield team on the podium at Austria. Oh, this is a tough one. I'm gonna say disagree.
I'm also going to say disagree.
Now, again, just pretty much what I just alluded to on the last point, where we don't know where anyone's going to be. I think it's looking promising that Red Bull might be strong at this track. They've won here the past 2 years, and the track just suits their car. But in the same way, Ferrari also did pretty all right last season. Charles took pole, led the majority of the race, before Verstappen chased him down and ultimately caught him. Mercedes had a big problem with cooling, which hindered their performances, but apparently they've sorted those cooling issues out. So we could see a more competitive Mercedes. Now, at time of recording, it is forecasted for rain on race day. Now, this could obviously change, weather could change or whatever. It happens all the time, but at this moment in time, it is scheduled for rain, so this prediction just could be blown out of the water. Who knows? When a rainy race does happen, anything is possible. We've seen that in Germany last year. So everyone's on the level playing field when it comes to rain. So that's something to take into account. But I'm taking it as a dry Grand Prix. And for me, I think Red Bull, I think they're going to be a strong package. Verstappen will want to get off to a really good start at their home Grand Prix. I think Mercedes will look a bit better this season. And of course, they've added in a few upgrades on their car, the Mercedes car and the Red Bull car. I think Red Bull demonstrated a couple of their upgrades when they did their shakedown run at Silverstone last week, I think it might have been. So, upgrades are coming, which will suit their car as well. So, yeah, I think I'm not expecting a surprise, but then again, we haven't seen any cars since testing. We haven't seen them in the proper race weekend trim. But I don't think a team has made that much of a jump between the midfield and the top three to get them on a podium on race pace alone. Now, of course, you've got safety cars to take into account, red flags, rainy race, big crashes, anything's possible. So that's what to take into account. But if you're taking in like a normal bog standard Grand Prix, which is what I'm going off, I think I can't see anybody else being on the podium other than at least the top three teams. McLaren. Whoa! Let's not jump into that one already. Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. Lyle, you also said disagree as well. What's your reasons why?
Well, to be honest, Formula One in the last few years has been, I would say, a toss-up between 6 drivers, or at least 3 teams. As you just said there, Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull. And that's where the massive competition is. I think last year we were ironing out a few problems for Alexander Albon, maybe. We know that Valtteri Bottas is there. We know, of course, Lewis Hamilton is there. Charles Leclerc, for sure, the leader at Ferrari. And, of course, Sebastian Vettel is still there. And hopefully he still has something in him. And, of course, the man I've just missed out in that train, Max Verstappen. Again, I'm not going to label him as good as Lewis in terms of race wins and things like that. But, again, like Charles, more experienced than Charles, but, still very strong. It's a battle between those 6. I do agree with Jordan, if it's just a bog standard race, it is looking like it's going to be, a good package between those, possibly one out of each team, like a bit like Australia, a good strong opening round. But obviously, again, as you just alluded to, we have things like safety cars, we have things like rainy race, which it is. I'll actually elaborate on that a little bit later on in the video. That can all kick up a fuss. We all remember Brazil. Last two races ago. Believe that, Jordan? Brazil was 2 races ago. Oh my! November. Honestly, wow. What's going on? Oh, just take a moment. Just take a moment.
Jesus, wow.
If you need to pause the video, I would do it now and just contemplate that. Brazil was 2 races ago. Oh my god. Anyways, wow. Anyway, so obviously Carlos Sainz gets on the podium. I know, of course, Lewis Hamilton got his penalty, but still, Carlos Sainz makes it on the podium, a midfield finish. That was a rainy race. That was a safety car race. We also have to look at Germany. Danny Kvyat gets on the podium. Incredible from him. Amazing performances by Lance Stroll. And it doesn't always have to be rainy. We've had some great finishes by midfield drivers in the past. Lance Stroll, one of the youngest drivers, Mr. Money, I guess he might have been labelled of there, of course, finishes on the podium in Baku, just a few races into his Formula One career. So, of course, things, miracles like that can happen, but I just don't think it is this year. And also, it is the competition. Last year, we saw one of the most competitive Formula One grids ever. If anything, last year could have been the most competitive, or what we thought was be the most competitive, for many years in Formula One. Going back to the likes of like when Lewis Hamilton entered Formula One and Sebastian Vettel, even maybe earlier than that, Michael Schumacher's rise and things like that. It was a massive battle. So we had some great drivers at some amazing teams, and of course, as well as keeping up driver, opinions, things like Lewis Hamilton going for 7 and things like that. It's also the teams. Mercedes are going for 7. Again, like we just said there with the first statement, Ferrari, they need to show people, they need to show the doubters, even they need to show the fans that are behind them that they are still here. And Red Bull need to show that they are still a championship contender, because even though they are creeping up to it, they obviously used to be, and it's been quite a long time since they have. Going back, 2013 was the last real championship fight that Red Bull have, of course, with Sebastian Vettel. So with all those 3 teams battling it out, and those 6 drivers really, fighting tooth and nail, and as I say, all 6 I think are now in. I think I've said before that, maybe out of those like 6, maybe one of the drivers will be behind, maybe 2 of them, like for example, I think I'll hold my hand up and say I thought Gasly would be out of that fight in 2019 at the start. I was a bit shaky with Alexander Albon. Again, when Valtteri Bottas came into Mercedes, I was maybe a bit shaken by him. I don't think I ever was with Charles Leclerc just because I didn't really, but still I was probably sitting on the fence with Charles, thinking how would he do, taking Kimi's shoes, because again, even though Kimi wasn't the best driver for Ferrari in his later days, he still got them points and of course a podium and a win. So I think that all 6 drivers are in the fight, all 3 teams, and yes, miracles can happen, but I don't think it's going to happen this year. And I do think that we are going to be seeing, as I say, 3 out of those 6 drivers I've just mentioned, and the top teams and the top drivers on the podium. But I would absolutely love to see that for sure. So the next comment comes in from Jonty, from Jonty's Corner. Again, we've worked with Jonty many times. Very good guy. He knows his F1 like no other F1 fan knows his Formula 1. It's absolutely insane. So I better say this right. So he says, at least one red flag in all 5 sessions. Now, of course, that is FP1, FP2, FP3, qualifying, and the race. I'm going to say to that, disagree.
Oh, what does he mean? Like 1 in every single session, or 1 in the weekend?
At least 1 red flag in all 5 sessions. So I think it means a red flag in FP1 to a red flag in the race. So yes, every session.
I would say disagree at that as well.
Yes. Now, the first thing I want to say is when a red flag falls, it doesn't always have to be for a crash. But, a lot of times it is, we look at Marcus Ericsson's crash in Monza, for example, and things like that. Obviously, we hope that nobody crashes. We hope that no red flags have to be out for that reason. Obviously, that is a terrible reason. In the wet as well, obviously, if any crashes happen in the wet, it can be really, really bad. But the only thing that I do in a dry race, I would say, yeah, most likely not. You're looking at, yes, a crash. Crash with a lot of debris. For example, K-Mag in Canada last year, obviously, when he sprinkled the... I know it was in qualifying, wasn't it? So he sprinkled the start-finish straight in loads of debris. Of course, that had to be cleared up. And of course, Canada 2011 and, all the debris and the Canadian marshals falling over everywhere. Canada loves to fall. If there's one thing you remember from the Sergio Gilles Villeneuve, it is the Canadian marshals that slip over all the time. And forget ice hockey. It's the track that makes them slide the most. Anyway, so yeah, but being in a rainy race, as I say, Jordan said, and what the weather forecast says at time of recording, it looks like it will be rain as well. It is most likely that it will be a red flag. I wouldn't say in all 5 sessions, but it does look like we will be seeing a red flag. Basically, it can be from anything from maybe a driver going on the gravel, a wheel loose. To be honest, there's a lot of things that could cause it. I'm not going to guess. I would say it is hard to think, especially in things like qualifying and the race, if there hasn't been a heavy impact. Again, I've just said, we can't say enough, we hope that doesn't happen. But I can't see a red flag happening in the race, for example, for, maybe like, I don't know, one piece of debris falling off the track. Maybe FP1, maybe the test and this, maybe the test and the things. We've seen a lot of sessions where the VSC will be deployed, to test the things around the circuit. We have seen red flags happen at the end of FP1 and things like that. I could only see that happening for this statement. I would probably say if you said there 1, I could see 1 happening, but I know it's not really a bold statement. It's a great bold statement, but no, I can't see it happening. Jordan, you also said disagree for this reason. 5 red flags, that is massive, and especially the race as well. Yeah. So yes, why do you say disagree too?
Well, I don't think there'll be like a red flag in like every single session, because I think first and foremost, the race. A Grand Prix is very rare that we do get a red flag in a Grand Prix, because we've got the virtual safety car and we've got the normal safety car in this day and age. So red flag in a race is very, very rare, but I can see a lot happening during the course of the weekend, definitely, because it's the first obviously first race of the season. The drivers have been off for like 4 or 5 months, stuck away inside, doing laps on simulators. Now some like Charles was doing some laps in his kart. Obviously Lando Norris, he was doing a couple of laps in his F3 Carlin car. Sainz was doing it in them as well. And then, like I said earlier, Red Bull were doing like some demonstration laps and filming day. AlphaTauri were, Ferrari have been at Mugello. So they're slowly getting to back into a Formula One car. Trying to get used to driving it once again in a fast environment trim. But I also think I think there will be a few rusty maybe a couple of screw looses in them as well, say in the sense that driver might brake a bit later, or you might push too hard, you might go a bit wider, because the reactions might have just slowed down just a little bit, because it has been so long since they were in like a proper actual Grand Prix weekend. So I think we will see a lot. I think we did see quite a few of them last year. I think, was it Valtteri Bottas? Did he go wide as well on one occasion? I think on the last turn, I think it's turn 10, or turn 9 or turn 10, where everyone just locks up and just goes straight on into the barrier. Sometimes hitting them big sausage curbs, break the suspension. Off they go. Are they actually still in there, the sausage curbs? I think they are, aren't they? I can't remember.
I think they are. I think like on the last corner, you can maybe get carried by, but I'm not sure.
I know that they were like a big problem when they first brought them in, but I can't remember if they have them. I think they do. So that could be a big problem. So like if someone is off on practice or qualifying, then they will red flag the session. So I think we could see a couple in qualifying, and especially quite a few in practice, and maybe a couple of cars breaking down, teams trying out new things, because this is the first race of the season, and we do see a lot of breakdowns in, of course we see them in testing, but we also see them in FP1 and FP2 as well, possibly FP3. Not ideal for FP3. FP1 and FP2, there's just enough time to get the car fixed for the next day for more practice running and then qualifying. But if you break down in FP3, you've only got 2 hours to get the car fixed for qualifying in proper race qualifying spec trim almost, getting ready for the race the next day. So not ideal for it to do that, but I think there will be quite a bit of teething problems with a couple of the teams, and I don't think that this will happen in just this race. I think maybe just after the British Grand Prix or the 70th anniversary Grand Prix as well, once they kind of get out of the way with and everyone's kind of back into the rhythm of being at a Grand Prix or being in a race car, then I think we could see a big improvement in terms of reliability, in terms of driver agility and driver reactions and stuff like that. Then eventually we will, the drivers will be back to their full fitness and getting ready to finish off the 2020 season. So the next statement comes in from Jack Milton, the true Coronus? I think that's how he said. Probably absolutely butchered it. Apologies for that, Jack. He says at least one Mercedes DNF because of the temperature.
Wow. So that's a good.
Interesting. Mercedes don't have they have an alright record there. I think they won I think 2018 was the first time that they didn't win a Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring since it was brought back in 2014. So they have had a good history here, but in the past couple of years, it hasn't went so well. I think they had both a double DNF in 2018, and last year they had problems with coolant. But I'm going to say disagree.
I'm going to say agree.
All right. Well, I'm not going to blabber on about this too much, because I have actually kind of spoken or referenced it in a previous prediction or opinion. I think Mercedes have said that their biggest problem last year and why they were so far off the pace was because of cooling. You remember when they lined up on the grid, David Croft was saying, David Croft said that the Mercedes said that they've opened the car as much as they possibly could to allow air in to cool the car down. It didn't work. They were well off the pace. And even though at the time it was a Mercedes 1-2 domination kind of phase, or a Mercedes winning streak kind of phase, it was good to see them not win for a change and actually Verstappen take a race win for Red Bull and of course Honda. And not only that, it was actually Honda's first win since 2006 I think it was. So pretty impressive. But Mercedes have turned around and said that they have sorted whatever the problem was, and of course added more things to it. So I think I'm pretty confident I'm believing in what Mercedes is saying in the sense that that they have sorted what was the problem. Like, they did try something. Their aero package didn't, like I said, it kept heating the car up, and whenever it came to hot races, they did struggle, and that was clear to see. So I think they have sorted their problems out, which is why I'm thinking, for this reason alone, I think both Mercedes will finish the Grand Prix. They normally do get off to a good start of the season and then kind of have a few problems in the latter part of the season. So, yeah, Lyle, you also said disagree. This is the first time... you said agree, sorry. You said agree. That's the first time we've kind of, disagreed on something, isn't it? We both had different opinions in today's episode. So, yeah, what's your reasons why?
The reasons why, Jordan, is just we have to disagree. At least once, or this video just falls apart. A little bit is, yeah. I mean, I'm taking a little bit of a gamble. I'm just thinking. So, I mean, Austria 2018. Bad race for Mercedes, double DNF at that track. It was cooling as well. It was the engine. It just doesn't cut off the high temperatures up in the hills, and of course it is going to be rain, so it's going to be unpredictable in terms of the temperature, in terms of the tyres, in terms of basically managing the car. Again, I'm just going off a little bit of a hunch. I'm not saying this will happen. Of course, Mercedes are definitely on those kinds of things. They have got the introduction of DAS and a lot of the electronic systems around that. So I think with all of that kind of electronic, the things in the car and DAS, and of course added on to all everyone else's problems with the late start to the season and the unpredictability of actually what's going to happen this weekend, we could see a Mercedes DNF, we could see a Mercedes problem. Again, I don't want to say that's all down to temperature. I mean, of course, temperature can get a lot of things, the engine overheating, the tyres overheating. In terms of just strategy and possibly the engine itself or the systems might not be working well. And yes, I am looking, as I've just said there, DAS. If they are going to be implemented this year, which they are, and of course a lot of teams are working on having it in the cars for next year for their own benefits, we could see a problem with that, just implementing something new into the car. Mercedes always trying to roll on the cusp edge of tweaking technology and things like that. Things normally don't go wrong, but we have seen them go wrong. Malaysia 2016, and of course Austria 2018, when we've seen things like that. And of course Mercedes have had other problems in the past, whether that be failures that led to crashes or retirements, DNFs, falling down the grid or things like that. As I say, it's just a little bit of a hunch. I can't say that I do think a Mercedes will retire or DNF because obviously temperature wise, but I could see something like that happening just because obviously they have got the new systems in place and the car has been sat there since February with absolutely nothing to do. Very much like a computer. If you have a computer that you haven't used for 2 years, you can't expect to boot it up and then run the latest edition of run the F1 2020 video game. You can't expect it to do that because obviously it's going to break, it's going to overheat because it can't take it. So for those reasons, possibly. But as I say, Jordan, maybe I'm just filling in the blanks of that we need to disagree more. So the last statement from me, the penultimate of this episode, comes in from Paul Scorthorne, and he says, despite every session being wet, again, weather at the moment, and I think it will stand, but obviously at the moment, as I say, things can change. Despite every session being wet, there will be no retirements in the race. And in brackets, all cars are classified as finishers. To that, I will say disagree.
I'm gonna say disagree as well.
So, I mean, obviously, I don't want to see any crashes or anything like that, as I've just said with Jonty's original statement. But yeah, obviously somebody always retires. It doesn't have to be from a crash. It can be from incorrect tyres. It maybe can be from a little collision at the start. Wrong this, wrong that. Yeah, DNF. It could be a temperature, as we've just said with Mercedes. It could be a whole load of problems. Obviously, if it is a wet race as well, normally we don't see things like that happen. We do see, drivers slip out of the classifications. And again, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you the last time. To be honest, even in a dry race, nobody retired. I'm even trying to think of France 2019, that incredibly boring race.
I think it was Austria last year.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, well, I mean, okay, fair enough that, that chucks into something else. I'm still going to say no. Wet or nothing, even if it wasn't wet. And again, another reason is just because these drivers are incredibly, hyped up. They've had all the sugary drinks, they've had all of the hype, they've had all the weight, and they've had all the boredom over the winter break, and they just want to get going. With that, coupled in with, the cars, and the ferociousness of the teams, and, the unreliability of the cars, I think we could be seeing problems. And I'm going to say, not only are we going to see retirements, but we could actually see quite a few retirements for, a little bit more stupid reasons. As I say, maybe a big collision of drivers that we don't expect to see that. And maybe, yes, some teams do, feel the pressure of things like, the changing temperatures, the high altitude of the hills, the first race of the season being in July. Of course, it will be very hot, hotter than, of course, the start of the season normally would be. I know, obviously, even though we're down in Australia, which is autumn, and we're here in Austria in summer, it will be obviously very different temperatures. They won't be used to running that. And of course, also the drivers, they will have, of course, lost fitness, because you can drive as much as you want in the simulator, but you're not going to be the same in the car. So for that, I'm going to say disagree. Not much to say about that, Jordan. But obviously, like I've just said with Johnny's statement there, I don't want anyone to crash, don't want anyone to be in that situation. So yeah, disagree for that. And also as well for fans, it makes it entertaining as well, for drivers to go out. And also, just one last thing as well, wet races do cause more experienced drivers such as Valtteri Bottas. Actually, I was going to list some of them, but I don't need to. Germany 2019, we saw some massive drivers DNF. We saw some massive drivers go off. And yes, I was talking about the reigning world champion crashing into the wall. He made it back to the pit after going into a 1 minute pit stop. But we saw people like Valtteri Bottas, massive crash from him. Charles Leclerc, a very embarrassing crash from him. Nico Hülkenberg, he's not really as skilled as Charles, but we get what you mean. Experience in the game. Max spanned the car again, kept it on the track. So we do see things like that happen. So again, when we're looking at retirements now in a wet race, it doesn't always have to be the big drivers. So that is my disagree, Jordan. Jordan, you said disagree also. We're agreeing on these. What's going on? But tell us why.
Well, obviously, because it's the first race back, there will be a few problems. That a few cars might have like I said break down, because they're still testing out new things, new parts. They don't know the full potential of the car, so they might run it too high and end up breaking something, or too low and end up overheating something or whatever. So there's all that to take into account, and it is rare that all cars do finish a Grand Prix, or at least are classified in a Grand Prix weekend. I'm certain it was last year, the last time it happened, and 5 times overall. I think 3 times in the V6 era and 2 times before that. So it's not very often. We've had 1021 Grand Prix or whatever. 1022, I'm not too sure on that one, and it's only happened 5 times. So it's like one in every 250 races or whatever. So it's very rare it happens. It's a possibility, because everyone could just go, Mike, everyone's car could be very reliable. That's the thing, but I can't see it happening personally. I think everyone's going to be wanting to push as much as they possibly can to try and understand their car more, which then could, like I said, to all kinds of problems. It is like the first day back at school, originally. So we could see some crashes. Like I said, some rusty driving who aren't really fully prepared to go into commence battle in a Grand Prix weekend. Of course, you have the experienced drivers who will, it's like a duck to water essentially. It's just natural to them. But you've got the likes of George Russell, Latifi, Norris, even Leclerc in some sense. Who are, they are used to being in Grand Prix and stuff like that. But of course, they haven't been away from the track this long in their lifetime. So how are they going to react to it? And of course, will other drivers, none in particular, that could just bump into people and stuff like that and cause a big crash, a big pile up into turn 1. But I think we'll definitely see at least a couple of retirements due to breakdowns or even crashes, because we do normally tend to see that more often than not at the very first Grand Prix. So, and of course, not something I nearly forgot to mention, pit stops as well. Of course, the crew who put the tyres off, put the tyres on, they're still going to be rusty. Of course, taking a lot of practice at the moment, getting the car, getting themselves ready, getting the fitness ready. But are they going to be alert? Is that bolt going to be tightened on enough? Are they going to handle the pressure like the ones had to? So, pit stops could, they've got to be taken into account as well. So we did see that with Grosjean last year in Australia when his tyre came off again for the second year in a row. So. And of course, that was the first race of the season. So yeah, we've just got to wait and see how it goes. But I think we will see at least a couple of retirements. So the last opinion or prediction for this agree or disagree comes in from Kang Cruel, and of course his is the title of this video. And he comes in with a pretty bold prediction. A good one though, but bold. He says Albon's first win in podium. Meaning, of course, at this Grand Prix in Austria. So he thinks Alexander Albon will win his first Grand Prix at Austria. That's rather interesting. I mean, Albon, he's had a pretty decent time at Red Bull so far. You know, he's putting in some good performances. A bit better than Gasly. I say a bit, a lot better than Gasly, of course. You know, he did pretty well. Gasly actually last year, he was lapped by Max Verstappen. He was lapped by his own teammate. So he can't get any worse than that, surely. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to disagree on that.
Do you know what? You know, whatever. Agree. You know, you've got to have fun now and then in life, so that is such an agree.
Ooh, he's going for the agree. Oof. Well, I'm not like, you know, down in Albon's ability, because he could absolutely go on and do it. He could just surprise everybody and just be one of the quickest there. He could be an absolute natural around the track, and therefore goes on to win the Grand Prix and surprise everybody. You know, we have seen that before in the past, so who's to say it won't happen this time? Red Bull, their car, it does suit that track very well. Verstappen performed well there last season, and the year before that. It's their home Grand Prix, so yeah, I think Albon, it could be in for a good performance. First podium is a really good shout. You know, getting on the podium for the first time, so close in Brazil. 2019, like Lyle said earlier, only 2 races ago. Yeah. So that's a realistic chance, but for the race win, a lot of things will have to happen for that to happen. Really, really do. Like retirements, or Mercedes not being on the pace, or you know, or even Red Bull themselves not being on the pace, or somebody from the midfield, Racing Point or McLaren, actually being quick, you know, part of the top 3, making it in the top 4 or even the top 5. There has to be quite a few things for that to happen if Albon wants to win the race. You know, safety car, rain, or whatever. So, but of course we'll be releasing our predictions when the preview comes out. So I don't want to be giving my race winner away just yet. But for me, Albon, I just can't see him winning the race. But like I said, it will be a big surprise if he does. And even if he does, hey, I would happily take it. A new race winner. I like Albon. He's a good guy. He's a good driver. And not a bad start to the season. Beating Max Verstappen to the race win. And being ahead of him in the standings. Yeah, not a bad start. But I think Albon will do alright. But I think for me, I think Verstappen will perform a bit better. And therefore could do a bit better than Alexander Albon. Not only that, but other drivers as well. In hint, the 2 Mercedes drivers. Lyle, you said agree. So you think Albon's going to win the Grand Prix? This is going to be interesting.
Well, I'm not going to say who I think will win the race in terms of my actual predictions, because obviously, as John said, they will come in the preview. But the thing is, like, I mean, a lot of people think that Max is going to win the race. Red Bull have an incredible chance at the Red Bull Ring. You know, the car is definitely suited at that track, but we don't know anything yet. And of course, Albon is a good driver. But I was just picturing in my mind there, and you know, as soon as it came to mind, it was kind of like the car's going over the Lauda curb. And, you know, Max Verstappen could be leading the race, yes. But really, you know, especially in the olden days when it was Verstappen and Ricciardo, a lot of people were like, Verstappen's the next big thing. But again, what about Ricciardo? He could still be there. We could still see a challenge. And Albon was challenging Max Verstappen. He was beating Max Verstappen at the second part of the season. I know Max had a few DNFs, but that's actually, you can't really, you know, you can't say, oh wow, well Max wasn't in the race, so that's fair enough. He did beat Max Verstappen in some race, so he is definitely there, and the fight is definitely there. And of course, as John said, that he could have got a podium in Brazil. I think he could do it. It all comes down to qualifying. If he can get on the front row, or if he can get even pole position, doesn't even have to beat Max. If he gets on the front row, or of course beats Max and gets to pole, it will be a good race for him. Just head down, strongest race. Obviously, we all know he's a great driver, you know, in Formula 2, and of course his other formulas back in the day. We know he's strong enough. I think he could definitely do it. There's nothing saying that he couldn't. There's nothing saying that he couldn't. And actually, in the comment section below, you know, if you think Max is going to win, fair enough, but don't shout people down for saying Albon, because he could for sure win that race. You know, it's like what people probably would have said before Charles Leclerc, you know, when he was first signed at Ferrari, or Sebastian Vettel run rings around him. Well, no, because look at the second race of the season, pole position for Charles. Even then, still people were saying Sebastian can beat him. We will never ever see people actually admit that until we saw him win in Belgium, when still it was like, that was a good position, but where was Seb? And then, of course, when I think Italy came around, that definitely sealed the deal of like, Okay, fair enough, Shaw can beat Sebastian Vettel, I'll hold my hand up and admit that. But Albon can for sure beat Verstappen, and he can win the race. I definitely do think that. As I was saying there, as we were just saying there, I am talking about if Max and Red Bull have an incredibly strong weekend, and they've built him up as much as he can, but Max is the cream, and then Albon's the cherry on the top. He has pimped him to the line. He's done a Usain Bolt dive. He's won the race. I definitely think that he could do that, John. I don't, for a moment think that it's all Max. I definitely do think Albon can win the race. So yeah, that's my reasons. We've disagreed twice. Thankfully, we do need some of that. But again, John, every single week, you guys, you've never seemed to disappoint us. Always sending in some absolutely incredible suggestions. Again, John, it's been an absolutely incredible episode, hasn't it?
It has, yes. I mean, we posted, send in your opinions about the Austrian Grand Prix, and you guys just flooded them in straight away, and absolutely, like I said, thank you so much everyone that did send them in. Now, of course, we can't reuse these ones because, that race would have already happened and stuff like that. So, if yours didn't make it, then commiserations. But of course, we will be doing them at every single Monday on a race week. We did release a 2020 video schedule announcement type of thing, telling you guys what is coming up on our channel in the 2020 Formula 1 season. So go and check that out if you haven't already. So I think that's one video off the checklist done. A couple more to go for this week before we actually get back onto the main reason why we're all here, which is of course Formula 1. We've got an F1 24/7 coming out this week for you guys, as well as always every single week our Austrian Grand Prix preview, the debate show, and of course the review. So excited. But also as well, we've actually got a little interview coming out with Sean this week on the Friday, so stay tuned for that. Really good week here on the channel on the F1 debate show. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. As always, stay safe, and yeah, like I said, thank you to everybody who did send in your opinions or predictions for this Grand Prix. And until next time, guys, or actually, if you're on around here, then please like and subscribe as well. And until next time, we'll see you later.
See you later, guys. Enjoy Austria.